Okay, so let's get into some climate change news. So obviously, Hurricane Delta hit Louisiana last night. Yesterday, power poles, lines coming down on Broad Street as conditions continue to deteriorate here in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Here's some footage. Woo-wee. That is good amount of storm surge there. Hold on one second. I don't know why these are all very old. Does anybody have any new news on Hurricane Delta? I was following this thread, hoping that they would like update the news on Hurricane Delta or what was going on. So this is new news, current news. Hurricane Delta leaves hundreds of thousands without power. This is from CBS News. This is from today. A few minutes ago, Hurricane Delta, now a tropical depression, made landfall near Creole, Louisiana on Friday evening with nearly 11 million people in the storm's path. More than 600,000 power outages were reported across Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi early Saturday afternoon as the storm's remnants moved further inland. The hurricane slammed the same region that was devastated by Hurricane Laura just 6 weeks ago. As of late Saturday morning, the threat of heavy rain was continuing according to forecasters. Delta is now expected to move across western and northern Mississippi before heading into the Tennessee Valley tonight and Sunday. So that is going on. That entire area is dealing with Hurricane Delta and the remnants. Hatsutaki says, wonder if we see Omega this year. I wondered that too. D-Truth, high winds destroy wind turbines. Sure. Clay Bomb, will we see Hurricane Zeta? Lexi says, good job, Delta. Cheering on the Hurricanes. How dare you, sir? I mean, it sucks because it's, fucking up a lot of people's lives. Pardon my French. Messing up a lot of people's lives. Putting people in harm's way. But if you understand that climate change is an ongoing and accelerating condition of the planet right now, if you live in Hurricane Alley, you would do your very best to relocate. Or if you know that a hurricane's coming, you would get your ass out of the way. Right? Or something. And of course, it would be great if the media could say like, hey guys, this is going to happen all the time now. Several times a year. So, we'll just let you know that from now on, this is never going to get better. Clay Bomb, it will be worse next year. Yeah, exactly. So, I'm letting you know, if you live in Hurricane Alley or, a high hurricane area, that's what's going to happen. So what are you going to do? You got to make your life decisions based on the truth. That is what's going on. Do French people swear a lot? I don't know. It's just an old expression. Yeah, so, get out of, yes, Mr. Troglodyte, this with a weak La Nina. G. Demarest, was there a Hurricane Kevin? I'm the only Hurricane Kevin I know. Ha, ha, ha. But I would say, putain, Keith Hayes. Random, but yes. Hunter Z, how's the methane levels? Can anyone tell me where to get readings? I don't know. There's readings. You know what's really interesting, guys? I'm on Twitter, and I generally follow a lot of climate change people. And you know what's been happening a lot is that I'm seeing less and less about climate change in my feed. I'm seeing very little about climate change in my feed. I have to really go seek it out. I don't know, Hunter Z, your question just made me realize that it's getting more and more difficult for me to find climate change news and, methane graphs or sea ice graphs. It's getting, I don't know, it's just not as predominant as it was. And I'm like, why is this happening? Yes, TCR Galaxy, this show is going to be 3 hours long in a few years with all the climate collapse events. I mean, I couldn't even begin to cover them all. Rich Diana, the fourth hurricane to hit Louisiana this year. Yeah, so, it would be awesome if the media could say, hey, guys, this is our new reality. This is going to happen all the time. You could either, stay where you are and deal with it and get used to it. But, maybe you want to think about relocating. Maybe the government could address and accept and acknowledge that climate change is here to stay. And if this is going to keep on getting worse every single year, maybe we'll help you move. We'll give you some funds to move if you need to move. If you don't move, you're on your own, right? We'll give you some money to relocate. But, if you don't want to relocate, well, then I can't really help you. Frankenschwire says, my family lives in Hurricane Alley, the family ranch. Nobody leaves for a storm. They just hunker down. Well, and that's, one way to do it. That's how a lot of people deal with it. But, at some point, reality is going to become, what it is. And so, there are consequences. Everybody makes choices. And the choices to stay will be, eventually getting wiped out. Because it's just not going to get better. It's not going to go away. It's not going to, Black Crow, check the channels that collect extreme weather. Lost to sea. I would say also methane, there's methane readings on Arctic News quite often. Yeah, it's around 1900 parts per billion, somewhere in that range, hovering in the 2000 range. Anywhere between 1800 and 2000 parts per billion, generally. Okay, let's move on. Sorry, it's taking up a lot of time. Speaking of extreme weather events or extreme, ecological calamities. This is from the Big Wobble from Saturday, today, October 10th. What's up with the birds? Turtle doves and pigeons dying along the Roman coast. 1,500 birds flew into some of Philly's tallest skyscrapers one day last week. thousands of migratory birds not showing up in Australia, and maybe millions more dead in the U.S. and Russia. Remember, we covered the story about mass bird die-offs in New Mexico a few weeks ago. In recent days, the Big Wobble has been reporting the deaths of maybe millions of birds from migratory shorebird colony failing to arrive in Southeast Australia in time for the start of the breeding season for the second straight year. Or the apocalyptic scenario which has unfolded in a secretive nuclear city in Russia, where hundreds of dead birds suddenly plummeted from the sky and lay scattered on streets. The mysterious mass die-off of crows above a secretive nuclear Russian city has sent the internet into a meltdown. Wait a minute. How do they know this if this is a secret nuclear Russian city? How do they know this? I'm just wondering how they got the information. Does anybody else have this question? Or the huge number of migratory birds which began dropping dead in the southwestern U.S. Normally, birds don't just die in plain sight, but the winged creatures are being found on bike paths and roads, hiking trails and driveways as if they plop down from the sky. So what's going on? Researchers are scrambling to explain why hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of birds are suddenly being found dead across wide swaths of New Mexico, Colorado, Nebraska, Arizona, and Texas in recent weeks. Or the 1,500 birds who for some reason flew into some of Philly's tallest skyscrapers one day last week. The slaughter shook bird watchers to the core. Let's look at this. I'm going to go to this link for a second. Where is ya? Wow. So this is from October 7th. Did anybody catch this when it happened? 1,500 birds flew into some of Philly's tallest skyscrapers one day last week. The slaughter shook bird watchers. Overnight and into early morning Friday, up to 1,500 birds flew into buildings in Philadelphia. No one really knows why. Stefan Majewski dropped to a knee on the center city sidewalk Wednesday morning and gently scooped up a yellow-billed cuckoo that had smashed into a skyscraper and died on its way to Central America or the West Indies. This probably happened yesterday, said Majewski, a 71-year-old retired social worker and volunteer for Audubon, Pennsylvania. He labeled a plastic bag with the time, date, and location, tucked the slim migrator into it, and continued his rounds. Majewski gets emotional when he speaks about all the birds he finds, but nothing, he said, prepared him for what happened Friday. So many birds were falling out of the sky, we didn't know what was going on. It was really a catastrophic event. The last time something like this happened was in 1948. Wow. Why so many birds in one day? Majewski said Audubon, Pennsylvania can only guess. This is complicated stuff, he said. It appears weather events lined up for the worst during what was likely the peak of migratory birds flight. The migratory birds' flight from Canada, Maine, upstate New York, and elsewhere towards Central and South America. A sudden plunge in temperatures could have prompted the birds to start their flights en masse. In Philadelphia, Friday brought low cloud cover, light rain, and a full moon, all of which could have pushed the birds lower. Birds flying from remote northern habitats might have little experience with glass. As they reached Philly in the dark, the birds could have been attracted to the lights inside the building. Some of the skyscrapers have indoor atriums, which could have led the birds to think they could land there. Wow. Okay, let's go back to this other story from the Big Wobble. A new mystery now evolving along the Roman coast in Italy. It has been happening for about 3 weeks now. On the Roman coast, there is a strange death of birds, from turtle doves to pigeons. In a period of pandemic, nothing can be underestimated, but much less mysterious animal deaths much less mysterious animal deaths. For some time, we have been witnessing a truly strange phenomenon, said Mario Russo Doria, president of Progetto Futuro Association, a hunter with an experience in breeding and cultivating in Fiumicino. We found turtle doves with no more energy dying. They do not have the strength to fly. They are unable to move away from humans when we approach the ground. It is not a natural behavior for turtle doves, far from it. Shortly after we find them dead on the ground, those that mice or other animals that frequent the drainage canals do not eat them. We are not talking about a single episode, nor about a limited number of victims, nor about a phenomenon that happened in a short time. By now, explained Russo Doria, it has been happening for weeks, and I am available to the local health authorities if you ever want to investigate the situation. The sudden death of pigeons involved the entire area, with findings quite distant from each other. What is happening? Is it a natural phenomenon, or should we worry? Are there toxic substances scattered on the land and therefore poisoning or viruses? For now, the alarm has been raised. Now it will be up to the authorities to clarify. Okay, weird. So, again, Marfugal covered the bird loss. I don't know who Marfugal is. Yes, Mr. Troglodyte, the beginning of a tropic cascade, excuse me. Yes. I mean, we're having these mass sea animal deaths in Russia, birds dying off. Poppy Davis says monarchs are totally fucked. So maybe, weather extremes, and weather patterns being shifted enough to start to confuse animals, confuse birds. Also, just the mass poisoning of the earth by humans. TCR Galaxy, mass extinction event in full swing. Alexi, bird COVID. Basil Peterson, yes, the authorities will clarify. Marfugal News, I've never heard of Marfugal News. Okay. I will have to check out the Marfugal News. We have 116 watching, 54 likes. Please like up the video. If you're new, please subscribe. Let's move on. I covered a little bit because we were talking about the Gray Zone article covering Planet of the Humans. We were talking about cobalt mining involving child slavery, and this is from 2 days ago. Capitalism cannot exist without slavery. Modern day slavery in the Congo, big European corporation behind it. Modern day slavery is also taking place in Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Lebanon, and they are kidnapping African domestic workers, raping them and killing them. It's time African governments to condemn this brutality. Right? I was just reading yesterday that there is a lawsuit underway against major corporations, many of them American corporations, who, Tesla and Apple being among them, who utilize the slave labor so that they can get these precious rare minerals for cheap. Because we need to sell those iPhones and whatever and those electric cars for, as cheaply as possible. Habsutaki. All right, people, that's where your smart ass devices come from. Right. Yes. Thank you, Kamashwari Kate. Yes. Uh, this is part of the problem. It's a huge problem. In where these minerals come from in order to make all of these beautiful, lovely, renewable gadgets. Right? Not, that is part of the problem. Obviously, um, the disposal of all of these gadgets and all these things and all of these batteries and the blades and all the stuff. How is that also affecting wildlife, the environment, people at large? Who's being poisoned? What's being poisoned? Again, all of this industrial activity does not come without a cost, whether it's clean and green or not. Basil Peterson, we need to get medieval on these crooks. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, let's get into a little more reading of this Gray Zone article. The shell game of fossil fuel divestment. I'm just going to read a little more of this today, and then we're going to move on. The tactic of fossil fuel divestment is at the heart of the so-called climate justice movement's plan to defeat the fossil fuel industry. Launched by Bill McKibben's 350.org, Y2K.com, and a coalition of professional activists, soon after the re-election of President Barack Obama in 2012, the campaign has resulted in institutions like Oxford University and Goldman Sachs supposedly divesting their holdings in oil and gas companies. Campaigners like McKibben simultaneously encouraged their constituents to invest in funds whose portfolios were supposedly free of fossil fuel companies. Planet of the Humans raked this tactic over the proverbial coals, demonstrating how investment funds endorsed by 350.org have engaged in a shell game in which fossil fuel assets are simply replaced with investments in plastics, mining, oil and gas infrastructure companies, and biomass. The big issue with divestment is that it absolves the destructive power of extreme wealth, Zenner explained. It's saying that family foundations can be forgiven and money can be moved into mining, gas, and oil infrastructure, solar, wind, and biomass. They divest from the brand name coal companies while investing in infrastructure companies that support coal mining. In one of the most controversial scenes in Planet of the Humans, Bill McKibben was seen inaugurating a wood-burning biomass energy plant at Middlebury College, where he has been a scholar in residence. The environmental leader praised the initiative as a quote-unquote act of courage. Because the event took place in 2009, McKibben and his allies have attacked the scene as an unfair representation of his current position. In an official 350.org response to Planet of the Humans, McKibben claimed that his views on biomass have evolved, leading him to cease his support for the energy source in 2016. Well, that's good. That's good. If people evolve, that's good. 2016, that wasn't that long ago, right? So he kept supporting this for how many years? 7 more years. Yet, less than a week after the Nation published Josh Fox's incendiary attack on Michael Moore and Planet of the Humans, Nation editor-in-chief Didi Guttenplan hosted an event with McKibben that was sponsored by a fund with major investments in several wood-to-energy biomass companies. So he did not evolve. So he lied. He lied. This is a week after the Nation published Josh Fox's incendiary attack. Called Domini Impact Investments, the fund claims to hold investments in 68 companies that both impact forests and depend on them, whether for forest-derived products or ecosystem services. One such Domini holding is a wood-to-energy company called Amoresco, which builds large utility-scale biomass-to-energy plants, according to the website. So he's still involved. Very much involved. This is 2020. Domini Impact also features its sustainable timber holdings, including Clabin SA, a company with logging operations spanning 590,580 acres in Brazil. Clabin SA manufactures pulp and paper products and operates a 270 megawatt on-site black liquor biomass plant. What the hell is a black liquor biomass plant? What the hell is that? Hold on one second, guys. I got to find out what that is. Black liquor gasification. So I guess this is something that's produced in pulping mills. The primarily liquid mixture of pulping residues from like lignin and hemicellulose and inorganic chemicals from the craft process is toxic. And until the invention of recovery boilers in the early 20th century, was often simply released into waterways. Ew. Good God. Recovery boilers allowed paper manufacturers to recover and reuse the inorganic chemicals and extract energy from the pulping residues. Many of these boilers were built in the 1960s and 70s and will need to be replaced sometime in the next few decades. The replacement of these boilers brings new interest in producing not only steam and electricity, but perhaps also fuels and chemicals via gasification of black liquor. Ew. Good God. That doesn't sound good at all, guys. Fabio Schwartzman, the former CEO of Clabin SA, was charged with 270 counts of homicide in Brazil this January. What the hell? After allegedly concealing knowledge of an imminent dam burst to protect the share price of his current company, Vale. The 2019 Mariana Dam collapse has been described as Brazil's worst environmental disaster. Wow. While introducing the Domini-sponsored event with McKibben, the nation's Gutenplaat plan, stated, by investing in the Domini funds, you can help build a better future for the planet and its people and be part of a movement working to address a wide range of social and environmental issues, including human rights, climate change mitigation, and forest stewardship. Neither McKibben nor Gutenplan responded to email requests for comment from the Gray Zone. Domini Funds was hardly the only investment fund that McKibben has partnered with to promote fossil fuel divestment, and which is engaged in the shell game exposed in Planet of the Humans. It was what was perhaps the film's most devastating scene. Narrator Jeff Gibbs detailed how McKibben has advised 350.org members to direct their money into the Green Century Fund, an investment portfolio that boasts of being wholly owned by environmental and public health nonprofit organizations and free of fossil fuel stock. Oh, but is it? As Planet of the Humans revealed, however, the Green Century Fund's portfolio has contained heavy investments in mining companies, oil and gas infrastructure companies, including an exploiter of tar sands, the biofuel giant Archer Daniels Midland, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, the world's leading plastic pollution proliferator, logging giants, and big banks from Bank of America to HSBC. Asked about this section of the film, Josh Fox dismissed it as out of date. He claimed that the entire idea of what constitutes a divested fund has changed really radically over the last 8 years, starting at first from just oil and coal and gas investments to then encompassing things like plastics and the meat industry and derivatives of all other options. However, a probe of the 2019 Securities and Exchange Commission's filings by Green Century Funds showed the fund held thousands of shares in meat giant McDonald's and Royal Caribbean Cruises, among other mega polluters. The latter company's Harmony of the Seas ship happens to be the most environmentally toxic cruise liner on Earth, relying on 3 massive diesel engines to burn 66,000 gallons of fuel a day. By the end of one voyage across the Atlantic, the ship has expended the same amount of gasoline as over 5 million automobiles traveling the same distance. Oh my God. Lies, lies, lies. Yeah, they're going to get you. They're going to get you. Woo. Guys, we're not done yet. We have 122 viewers, 67 likes. Please like the video. If you're new, please subscribe. All of this is bullshit. All of their claims of old news. Oh, no, he's not doing that anymore. No. He doesn't support these things. No, these are all clean green funds. No. All of that is a lie. No, human of the planet, planet of the humans, human of the planet, humans of the planet. Planet of the Humans had it right. They were correct. Their information is rock solid. Rock solid. Sorry. No. You are the liars, right? They're racist, eco-fascists. They're eugenicists. No, this film is totally wrong. It's filled with lies. No, you are the liars. You are the liars. The film was spot on. They were correct. They were correct. So yeah, sit down, shut up. Josh Fox, all the people that talk are there that were like, no, Planet of the Humans is all wrong. No, sit down, shut up. Sit down and shut up. And find something else to bitch about or whatever. Or maybe look at your own actions and change your behavior. Or why not, think of ways to really help the planet. But otherwise, sit down and shut up. Shut your ass. Shut your lying ass. Josh Fox, shut your lying ass. Bill McKibben, shut your lying ass. Take your stupid y2k.org fucking shit the fuck out of here. Bye-bye. Bye. Jeff Gibbs on the money. Ozzie Zenner on the money. Michael Moore on the money. Yep. Anyways, move on. We got more to cover, guys. More to cover. One more thing I'm going to cover before I go today. This is a tweet from Go Green. Younger generation future has been sacrificed so fossil fuel billionaires. Oh, and they're all in these green funds, right? Because we're all going green, guys. Fossil fuel billionaires are subsidizing Bill McKibben's and the Josh Foxes of the world. And also Tesla and also Apple and also all these green companies, green technology companies. They're all part of it. So fossil fuel billionaires can live in obscene wealth. The earth is on fire. I'm going to read this article from Scientific American. This is from October 5th, 2020. The earth is on fire. It's immoral to saddle today's young people with an inheritance of environmental catastrophe. Immoral, wrong, evil, shitty. I've never known an earth that wasn't on fire. I'm 23 years old. Who's writing this? Jordan Salama. I'm 23 years old and I'm not alone. My entire generation has come of age in a world so defined by climate change and human destruction, by forests burning and glaciers melting, by extinguished species and rising seas, that it's sometimes been hard to fathom what an even more dismal future might look like. That is, until the pandemic reared its ugly head, bringing about the kind of worldwide lockdowns and upheavals of daily life that have given terrifying prescience to the term global emergency, while still falling far short of what scientists say will be the worst environmental catastrophes that await us. The fate of nature, like so much else, has been an agonizing side story to the virus. A real-time plot that is being followed most closely, I think, by those of us young enough to one day see the worst of it. At first, things seemed hopeful. Struggling to adjust to the new normal of life in quarantine in March and April, we were relieved to read that emissions levels had dipped, even if only temporarily. Yes, you can tie the COVID quarantine lockdown, all of that. You can tie that to climate change and as an example of, oh, look what we can do if we all actually agree to do it. And that the skies over New Delhi and Los Angeles and Buenos Aires had cleared of smog. I smiled, as we all did, to see that animals were roaming free through quiet cities and traffic-free streets, and photos that became so popular that others were inevitably falsified. Listen, the people that don't want you to tie these good things, these positive silver linings of COVID lockdown, the people that don't want you to tie climate change to the COVID lockdown or tie these silver linings to the COVID lockdown are people that want industrial civilization to return to normal, planet destruction to return to normal so that they can keep on lining their pockets with money. They are all full of shit. So again, to those people who are like, oh, we can't tie climate change. Oh, we can't celebrate these good things that the COVID lockdown brought because, humanitarianism or, somehow that's a bad thing to do to celebrate, the fallout, these possibly good, positive fallout from COVID quarantining. We can't possibly link those things together. No, we can. So again, be quiet, sit down, shut up. Nature seemed to be reclaiming spaces humans had abandoned. Perhaps, I wrote in April in a letter to a friend, we were all peculiarly drawn to those news stories of goats and lions and dolphins reoccupying spaces emptied of humans because we've long been aching for reminders of a natural world that has overwhelmingly been lost. Wow, sounds like maybe humans shouldn't do everything they want to do. Maybe humans shouldn't just roam the earth freely. Maybe humans should not have dominion over the planet as they do. Maybe humans should be, somewhat curtailed in their activity. Maybe humans should sit the fuck down and stop destroying the planet. In the midst of so much present grief, such storylines gave us faith in nature's resilience. And maybe some optimists speculated it would even inspire us to be better stewards of our planet when this was over. Indeed, there were some concrete benefits to what scientists in the journal Nature have recently coined the anthropause. That's good. I haven't heard that. The anthropause. It was once in a lifetime opportunity for humans to understand our impact on wildlife in a crowded world that seemed for a moment a little less crowded. Or maybe understand that what we could do, how we could actually lower emissions very quickly. If we were willing to take other steps other than buying an electric car or, buying more things. Or doing all the things that we're doing, but just greening it up a little. You know what I'm saying? Just investing in a green fund. But pandemics like this happen and will keep happening because we humans have long encroached on wild spaces. So I was hardly surprised when the more significant, more harrowing evidence began to emerge. The great rainforests and tropical wetlands of Latin America, in the absence of international watchdogs and local enforcement, have been slaughtered and burned like never before. As the pandemic rages on and quarantine is treated as a tiresome inconvenience, global emissions have returned to normal levels. In May, there was an Exxon Valdez-sized oil spill in the Russian Arctic, followed by others in places like Mauritius and Venezuela. Unfathomable. I'm gonna pronounce that correctly. Ecological catastrophes that are buried beneath headlines of case numbers and mortality rates. Illegal poaching is on the rise in Africa. The list goes on. And that's only what we're seeing from afar. While some of us may feel guiltier than others, we've all somehow regressed in our daily choices since this began. Accepting that extra plastic bag at the supermarket, right? We all have, right? Yep. Ordering takeout despite all the single-use containers. Oh, yeah. Love that takeout. Got to have it. Why not just have it delivered? And if we're privileged enough, driving instead of taking public transportation because, well, it's a global pandemic, we say to ourselves. Take a walk outside and you'll find the potentially virus-laden masks and latex gloves that now litter our streets and beaches and parks, and which will eventually fill our rivers and lakes and seas. It's as if the pandemic has suddenly given people everywhere, even more of a license to dirty the world, if that's even possible, with carelessness, if not outright contempt. And I fear that for every day it continues unabated by the decisions of our vile president, today's young people will be paying the ecological price for the rest of our lives. By young people, I'm not just talking about those of us living in the United States, about to vote in the most consequential presidential election we may ever live to see, or maybe not that consequential. I'm talking about children from impoverished families worldwide whose health and food security has plunged into even more uncertainty because of the devastating 1-2 punch of climate change and the virus. For the global environment emergency, like the pandemic, also lays bare systemic racism and socioeconomic inequities. I'm talking about young climate organizers across the globe who have been calling out people's ignorance of science for years, the same problem that has gotten us into the worst of the pandemic and our current ecological catastrophe, and feel now more than ever that they're screaming into a void. And perhaps most brutally, I'm talking about young indigenous people all over places like Latin America, whose entire cultures, many of them predicated on harmony with nature, are being erased as their elders die of infection and as illegal ranchers and miners, ever encroaching during the pandemic, violently remove them from their ancestral lands. Here in the U.S., though, the chorus is louder than it's ever been, as some of the worst wildfires on record tear through the American West, painting the sky orange, and as hurricanes ravage the South, leaving behind apocalyptic fields of ruin. In today's pandemic moment, nature's storyline has reached a new low. It's unfathomable. Why do you got to keep writing that word? Unfathomable to me that some people can still so easily shrug it off, especially if they have kids or love anyone who is younger than them. For so many in my generation, it is such a constant, excruciating worry. Apathy, let alone denial, can no longer be an acceptable option, because we know that if we stay on this course, the destruction will inevitably come for us too. But I like to think that the research and reckoning of resilience from the original anthropos still gives some hope. Perhaps if we all live a little lighter, how about a lot lighter? Just a little lighter. How about a little bit less? How about a whole lot less? Yeah. If we listen to those who are in harmony with the land, and if we take solace in all that there is to love in the world, that nature might meet us halfway, that if we start by turning things around in November, following it up with the most drastic action possible, you can do that drastic action, November be damned, right? Whether it's Trump or Biden, you can do that drastic action. Because I'm going to tell you, because the reaction from Trump or Biden will be exactly the same. Nope, we don't care. Nope, we're not going to do anything. Nope, we're probably going to lock you up. So do the drastic action anyways, dear young people. We can still harness that final fleeting opportunity to build a cleaner and greener future for us all. The planet and our fate on it hang in the balance. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed that. That was rather depressing. Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel at the links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there, and thanks so much.